Hi, and welcome to the webinar. Today we'll be discussing video surveillance in classrooms and around campus. My name is David Martin, and I will be your moderator today. LENSEC is sponsoring this event, and since 1998, LENSEC has been a trusted security and surveillance partner with experience in the U.S. and around the world. LENSEC has a background working with many types of industries and help customers develop enterprise solutions for complex physical security projects. We have developed a powerful security platform called Perspective Video Management Software, and this is an enterprise VMS which streams and captures IP security video and incorporates video analytics, access control, and more into the software. I'll introduce our speaker in just a moment, but let's go over a few logistics. We will be taking questions during the webinar, and you may enter your questions in the GoToWebinar panel, generally found at the bottom of the GoToWebinar panel. We'll collect those during the presentation and then answer questions at the end of the event. We'll also present poll questions during the event, and we encourage your participation in answering these questions as they are presented. And at the end of the webinar, we'll present a survey for the attendees. We'll ask that you answer a few quick questions to help us better serve you guys in future webinar events. And if you're interested in a completion certificate for today's webinar, just indicate so on the survey. Then we'll follow up in a few days after the webinar with certificates, answers to questions, and a copy of today's presentations. We also record these webinars and post them to our website. So we'll provide you with a link to the webinar video archive, which is at lensec.com. LENSEC does sponsor these webinars monthly and covers a variety of safety and physical security information. So check back with us to find out what's next in our Step in Security webinar series. Okay, so today's physical security expert is Keith Harris. He is the marketing manager for LENSEC. He has skills working with law enforcement and government customers selling video security projects, and also has trained law enforcement personnel on video surveillance and investigative techniques. He spent over 20 years in the news broadcast business working with cameras. So Keith, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, David. Welcome to everyone that's joined us for today's webinar. Thanks for making the time in your busy day. We promise to wrap up today's presentation on time so you can get back to your busy schedule and hopefully get on to a long weekend this weekend. Today we'll be discussing a variety of solutions on surveillance considerations for campus security deployments. First, we want to talk about interior areas with a special focus on cameras in the classroom. That's been a hot topic in different areas around the country due to recent legislation in Texas requiring cameras in certain special education classrooms. We'll also review solutions for exterior cameras, and we'll take time to dig in on some background information that's good info to have on video surveillance deployments in general. Finally, we'll take a look at multi-site campuses, and we'll primarily look at those that use enterprise software to connect geographically diverse locations. Covering a campus for video security can be a challenge. Many decisions need to be addressed there. If you have indoor areas, they can present areas that can be difficult to cover. Public areas cover wide open spaces with many potential targets. You need to consider how you'll cover these targets and still keep a general overview of activity. You should consider placing cameras at entrance and exit points. You want to make sure that your cameras are providing enough resolution and clarity that help you identify faces. You may not need fine detail in these areas, but you want to be able to recognize faces and medium detail in the recorded image. Capturing video at the entry and exit points keeps a record of who's coming and going from a campus, along with the timestamp of when activity occurs. That way, you can narrow your search down to a specific time frame. You can know who was in the area at the time. Entrances are important since they're the primary access for people coming into or exiting the building. At these locations, you should use wide dynamic range cameras for contrasting scenes. Medium or standard resolution is typical for large open lobbies or foyers. Cameras with higher resolution may be required if you need fine detail. Don't forget about your side doors. While most building traffic flows through the main doors, some will flow through alternate access points. I recommend cameras on these side doors to help capture activity. Loading docks can be considered a low priority area by some. However, it's still an access point to the building. Capturing video activity here helps to prevent people from skirting around the main entrance. Another good reason to have cameras at the loading dock is for safety prevention for delivery drivers and employees. Having cameras for offices is helpful for areas where essential materials are handled. This could be process areas where safety monitoring is needed, or clerk stations where money passes hands. In campus environments, a good example would be the front desk in an office. If you have other areas where money or valuables are stored, getting camera coverage here will be helpful also. I'd recommend high-resolution cameras depending on the priority placed on those target areas. Hallways have sporadic traffic at high volume, especially in an education environment. Most of the time the halls are empty, but when classes change, they can become quite crowded. Fights can occur, and sometimes items are stolen. You may not need high resolution in hallways. Medium resolution capturing general activity may be adequate. Restrooms are considered a very private area, of course. Obviously, you don't want cameras inside the restrooms, but you should be careful about positioning them so they can see through doorways. The camera may capture more than intended. It's, however, a good idea to keep an eye on the traffic around the restrooms. Sometimes illegal or suspicious activity can occur in restrooms due to the privacy they offer. If you keep an eye on the walkways leading to and from the restrooms, video evidence may lead you to witnesses or suspects when a crime does occur. In the cafeteria, you have a lot of activity interspersed with no activity, much like the hallways. Gym surveillance falls into the same category as well. So it's important to use motion video detection in these areas. Video motion will monitor the area within the camera's field of view, but then only commit video to the stored recording if activity occurs. You can set a few cameras with a wide view, but I'd recommend some close-up cameras in priority areas such as cash registers, food lines, entrances, etc. That brings us to our first poll question. David, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, let me launch that for us here. Excuse me. One moment. And that question is, what kind of cameras should you consider deploying for interior campus areas? And just make your selection online there out of the provided choices. So for what kind of cameras should you consider deploying for interior campus areas? Would it be an analog box, an IP bullet, a megapixel dome, maybe with infrared, webcams, or none of the above? And we'll give you a few moments to make your selection. Okay, looks like we're ready here, actually. Let me okay. Looks like most everybody selected megapixel dome cameras with infrared, and a few said none of the above for interior.
Well, that falls right in line with what I'd recommend. Megapixel cameras, especially dome cameras with infrared, would be my favorite choice for that. While the infrared may not be needed, it wouldn't hurt, probably doesn't add much cost to the security system. The infrared keeps the campus well covered even at night. A lot of people don't want to use infrared indoors, but I recommend it even indoors because it doesn't add much cost to the system. And it helps if you've got break-ins at night to keep those areas well covered. Most systems can be set up on a schedule to email alerts to key personnel when motion activity is detected after hours. That can help you keep an eye on your campus even in the middle of night and potentially even give you the ability to monitor your activity from a mobile device. Dome cameras have a small footprint and blend well into the indoor environments. They're less obvious than box cameras, as it's a little harder to guess where they may be pointing. Cameras should be positioned up and out of reach. If they're low, then students or people that are breaking in or other folks might be tempted to move them around unplug them, or damage them. Up and out of the way is a better placement. Positioning a camera in a corner is common, as it gives you a good position to optimize your field of view. Tamper-resistant features are nice also. Using cameras that secure the network connections inside the dome is typical. Also, cameras that have a non-standard screw can keep people from trying to unplug or open up the dome camera. Good examples of where a 360-degree camera would be used would be in a cafeteria or a gym. One camera can give you a view across the entire area. Those cameras can also be set up in a 180-degree panoramic view as well. Let's take a look here at a few examples. This is a school cafeteria. You can see that adequate coverage can be achieved to cover the entire area with one camera. This is a 360-degree camera that's been covered to, configured rather, to cover the entire cafeteria area with just one camera view. With the advancements in these cameras, in recent years, one camera stream can be set up in a quad view format. The 360-degree view is de-warped in the camera, and it provides a standard view without distortion. You can view this in a 180-degree panoramic view, as mentioned, or you can break up the single camera stream into a quad view, focusing on 4 different angles of the same camera image. Since the software provides digital zooming, you can zoom in on any of these quad images to get more detail in specific areas. Here's a high-resolution 180-degree view. This is a wide-angle view in a panoramic format. The view displayed here is using one camera. The user can digitally zoom in on the high-resolution image to capture activity across the panoramic view. Be aware that any wide-angle camera can reduce clarity for target areas that are not in close proximity to the cameras. This would be the same for a 180-degree format and the 360-degree format as well. The impact is minimized in megapixel camera images. The higher the resolution, the more clarity you have when digitally zooming using the VMS. Make sure your video management software will allow you to use non-standard viewing ratios. You wouldn't want to be stuck with a 4:3 ratio or a 16:9 ratio when you're attempting to get a panoramic image captured. Aerocon cameras started this trend with their panoramic camera several years ago. The downside to this is the body had 4 cameras built in. That requires 4 video streams, meaning 4 available positions and camera licenses within the software. This is how that view looks. Setting up a proper camera view can be helpful in getting the right video evidence recorded. Each single camera view is a camera capturing a narrow field of view. And when the software arranges these views side by side, activity can be tracked across a wide area. And there's many of these cameras still in use today, although some of the other cameras that offer one camera stream to replace the 4 camera streams are becoming more common. Let's take a look at corridor format. Looking at this hallway, video area can be wasted on blank wall space. Using a camera with corridor mode provides a unique space ratio, capturing more of the key video area. However, using corridor mode can result in the loss of pixels per foot, which reduces recognition and clarity. Corridor format allows cameras to maximize video surveillance in narrow vertical situations. This format creates a unique, high-quality vertical video. Traditional HD video is recorded in a horizontal or landscape format that's wider than it is tall, and it has a ratio of 16:9. The new corridor format creates a vertical portrait video with a new 9:16 aspect ratio that works in tall, narrow spaces. This helps avoid recording unnecessary space where useful activity rarely occurs. Make sure your BMS will support this feature by providing non-standard viewing formats. I have a few recommendations when it comes to placing cameras in classrooms. I like the 2-camera setup for a standard classroom. This may not be necessary for all classrooms, but it improves coverage over 1 camera alone. You'll see here in our diagram, we recommend placing cameras in opposite corners of square classrooms to ensure there is no area that isn't in a camera view. It provides a reverse angle on activity that can provide better detail when incidents occur. Areas can be masked out using a privacy mask if necessary. A privacy mask will digitally block out sensitive areas within the camera view. That must be set up within the camera and would typically require going into the camera menu to ensure that the privacy mask is turned on or off. When you have odd-shaped classrooms, you may need extra cameras to cover blind spots. A single or double camera arrangement may not be enough. Let's take a look at this L-shaped room. In this scenario, I'm recommending 3 cameras to achieve 100% coverage. The issue of cameras in special education classrooms has been hotly debated in a few states. Now, new legislation has been passed in Texas requiring cameras in certain special education classrooms. Texas K-12 schools may be required to bear the cost of implementation without funding help from the state. The law applies to school districts in the state, and it also covers charter schools with open enrollment. The Texas Education Agency will adopt rules and administer the law. Other states are lining up to follow Texas' lead. We've heard of pending legislation in other states, though Texas is the first adopter of the law. We have a webinar that covers that topic in our video archive. I'm provided a link here at the bottom of the page, and we'll share that out with you after the webinar as well. Parents and advocates are lobbying their state legislators to enact laws protecting students in special education settings. States are introducing bills mandating video surveillance in classrooms for special education students. There are petitions being signed in North Carolina and in Kentucky requesting lawmakers to consider the issue. The Georgia General Assembly has a bill before the House. Michigan, Tennessee, Ohio, New Jersey, and Rhode Island have all considered proposals for cameras in special needs settings. The call is for monitoring self-contained settings, such as special education classrooms and other settings where staff care for children with disabilities. Texas' newly adopted law requires cameras and microphones in certain classrooms. The law requires compliance in the 2016-2017 school year, so it's coming right up on us. Other states contemplating legislation could follow suit and mirror what Texas is requiring. If your district has a need for classroom cameras, consider high-quality cameras for the best images possible. Different situations may require different camera choices. In LENSEC solution, we've chosen an Axis camera. We like the Axis M5013 for this job. It has a low profile, so it doesn't look obtrusive, and the camera has a pan, tilt, and zoom capability, so setting up your field of view is a snap. The camera can be powered from an Ethernet switch via the Ethernet cable, a PoE switch that is. The built-in microphone is good compared to most cameras, so LENSEC isn't planning to include a separate microphone in most conditions. Be careful in your district to ensure that you follow local laws for capturing audio. A nice feature on this camera is a built-in SD card slot. This can act as a backup for recording locally on the camera. If for unknown reasons a network goes down or the recorder is not functioning, the video can be stored on an SD card as a backup to the main system. Now let's look at outdoor areas. Those provide their own different set of challenges that interior areas present. Outdoor areas can be expansive depending on the campus. An elementary school and a university campus will obviously have vastly different layouts. When you're surveying the outside common areas in particular, pay attention to the areas where people gather. Courtyards are a place where surveillance is important, especially at the high school level and the university level. However, due to the large scale of the outdoor area, you may have to settle for a general overview. Again, I recommend taking a look at your priority areas, entrances and exits, to designate some cameras to watch places where you have valuable assets. An example of that would be an outdoor mall that features a statue or a sculpture. You also want to focus on traffic lanes, meaning vehicle traffic or foot traffic. Look for the corridors that people move through. Focus cameras in those areas as you have a greater chance to capture relevant activity. Playgrounds and sports fields are a nice addition to any campus, but they also are areas that have a potential for many different problems, including fall risk or injury. Training cameras in these areas can capture activity when these events occur. Having a record of what really occurred rather than relying on student witnesses may reveal the truth in an investigation. The bus drop-off is important to cover. You want to make sure you have a few high-resolution cameras watching the bus drop-off, as there are times when students really pack into this area before and after school. Due to the large quantity of people in this space, potential increases for fights and/or theft. Bike racks are a problem for schools of any size. Students rely on this affordable transportation, and it can really set them back financially to lose their means of mobility. If you're putting a camera system in place, reserve a few cameras to cover the bike racks. This not only helps protect your student's property, but can save valuable time for the school resource officer who has to take the theft complaint. Parking lots vary depending on the campus as well. Some large high schools or universities may have hundreds or even thousands of parking spaces. Capturing detail across acres of parking may be nearly impossible. As we've suggested before, identify those priority areas. You should, let's take a look here at the next poll question.
Okay, let me launch that for you. The question is, should you add a PTZ pan-tilt zoom camera to parking lots to improve monitoring student and staff in vehicles? So let me just share that real quick. Okay, and we've got a few choices to select from. Absolutely no other choice. It's worth consideration depending on the budget. No, this area is lower priority and we can't afford PTZs. Or I'd rather cover the area with multiple megapixel cameras. So we'll give you a few minutes. It looks like most of you have already answered. Okay, yeah, we've got all our answers, so I'm going to go ahead and launch the results here. And most said it's worth consideration depending on the budget, and others said they'd rather use megapixel cameras.
Consideration depending on the budget isn't a bad choice. However, my choice is number 4. I think that I'd rather cover the area with multiple megapixel cameras. PTZ cameras can be expensive. Another downside in that situation is when a PTZ camera is moved and left in a viewing arrangement that prevents you from seeing the whole picture. So that's one of the reasons that I make the option for PTZs. When we take a look at PTZs, discussions over the past 3 or 4 years have indicated that the use of pan-tilt zoom cameras is declining. Megapixel technology allows the digital zoom and is also sometimes called a digital PTZ to give you detail in a video that would make the mechanical PTZ obsolete. After all, fixed megapixel cameras are a fraction of the cost of a mechanical PTZ, and they offer greater resolution. With enough megapixel cameras covering the viewing scene, fixing the fixed cameras, the megapixel cameras, would resolve the main issue with the mechanical PTZ. When a PTZ is pointed in one direction or targeted on action in a certain part of the field of view, you're missing the action elsewhere. Multiple megapixel cameras can capture the entire field of view while providing better resolution and clarity of image. This enables 100% coverage of the field of view with no need to zoom into certain target areas with a mechanical lens. The wide angle covers the entire area, but then the zoom is achieved using a digital zoom, either while monitoring real time or after the fact while reviewing archived video footage. The digital zoom is a virtual zoom that doesn't affect the entire scene being captured and recorded. Let's take a look at this parking lot. There are driveways where traffic must pass through in order to enter or exit the parking lot. These are called choke points, high priority areas where you can ensure you capture the activity of vehicles and pedestrians entering and exiting the wide open area. When you look at the parking lot, the obvious choke points are driveways. These are the most likely spots for vehicles and likely foot traffic to access your facility. You could easily consider entrances to the buildings a choke point as well. Training cameras on these driveways can help you capture valuable info about the vehicles and people around your facility. You'll want to narrow the field of view and choose a higher resolution on cameras that are focused on choke points. You may be able to capture license plate detail in optimal circumstances. You may be able to capture detail about the driver or pedestrian that enables you to accurately identify a person. You'll also be able to capture info about vehicles such as make, model of car, color, and distinguishing characteristics. Parking lots that need controlled access will have security gates. This is a great spot to capture the detail you need with the cameras. When the vehicle is stopped, conditions are ideal for capturing good information. Outdoors can be an unforgiving place. You'll want to make sure you choose outdoor cameras that are designed to withstand the elements. Most of these cameras have a metal housing for added durability, and they usually also have some gaskets and prevent water and dust intrusion. Understanding the difference between weatherproof and waterproof is important. Cameras that claim to be weatherproof may not necessarily be waterproof. A camera with an IP65 rating is considered weatherproof. It can withstand a great deal of water, but not necessarily submersion. A camera with an IP68 rating is waterproof. It can withstand submersion in water for a period of time without damage. Vandal-proof cameras vary widely. Some may only have tamper-proof screws, such as the ones you see in the picture here. Some vandal-proof cameras are built with more durable materials designed to withstand damage and abuse. Cameras with infrared illuminators built in can be very useful for areas with little to no external lighting. These are designed to illuminate an area and improve nighttime visibility for the camera. In order to plan properly for a security project on campus, you have to do a site assessment. Awareness is important. It's just like running a white cloth on your fireplace mantle during spring cleaning. You might not realize how neglected your security infrastructure has become until you perform an assessment. During the site assessment stage, you'll analyze where your facility is vulnerable. Vulnerabilities to intrusion or attack, argument escalation such as physical and violence, reliability concerns like slip and fall are all items to consider under your security plan. Finally, during this stage, you want to triage or rank your priorities, taking into account past goals and newly modified areas of concern. A site audit will allow you and your team to look at how you're secured today and potentially where you want to take it in the future. There's a few things on your to-do list. Determine your camera field of view and focus. Evaluate camera housings for cleanliness. This can affect your visibility in various weather conditions. You also want to look at your areas of strategic interest. Determine your field of view that needs to be covered from camera positions. Decide if you're addressing any new or modified buildings. Take a look if new walls have been added that impede traffic flow or visibility. Determine if any existing security equipment can be carried over and still be effective. You want to decide if any technology pieces still hold a calculated value. Research to see if you have enough warranty coverage or any remaining warranty coverage on your equipment. Evaluate existing infrastructure to see if it can be leveraged. Examples for this would be inspecting cabling, wiring, wireless equipment, fiber trenching, etc. Evaluate your existing staff and determine those people that administer or use security systems for monitoring or management. Look to see how the system is used today. And finally, consider your security policy, whether there are any adjustments that are in order. Make sure you take some time to research your physical security equipment and software options. Understand as much as you can about current technology and how it fits into with your needs. There are good resources for learning about available technology. LENSEC series of webinars like this one address physical security technology and safety issues. So there's more to look at there at the link on the bottom of the page. Access Communications, the #1 camera manufacturer worldwide, has a great learning and support page that I turn to often for technical explanations. Getting some help in planning out your system is important as well. You can get suggestions on your project from a security consultant or an integrator. These people are professionals that are trained to see your project in ways that most people don't. They can suggest camera positions, recommend proper fields of view. They can also help you determine the right network infrastructure to support your recommended security system. A security consultant is professionally trained to give you a security design plan that encompasses different needs on your campus. They might work for an architect or engineering firm, or they may have their own business that focuses on consulting for security projects. They will usually deliver a report that has recommendations for your project and may act as a liaison that helps you implement your security deployment. A consultant is not responsible for installing the equipment, though they may work with your installation partner depending on the services you require. A security integrator will have a great deal of experience recommending security designs to customers as well. They actually handle the installation of equipment on your property. A good security integrator will be able to manage the security project from start to finish. They'll be able to handle ongoing maintenance and repairs if needed as well. You should avoid integrators who aren't interested in a long-term relationship and supporting your equipment in the future. Find someone you can partner with for the long haul who provides excellent customer support and service for the life of your security equipment. Quality integrators and consultants should have a healthy list of references for projects of your size and scope. If they haven't tackled sizable projects, then look for someone who has. Deploying cameras across multiple sites can be a challenge. In fact, many campuses don't link across geographical regions, though I can give you a few good reasons why you should consider it. Some campuses are very diverse in their surveillance deployment, many different equipment, brands, and system designs across the education system. For example, they may have an analog DVR system with a variety of camera brands at a middle school and no coverage at an elementary school. Or a university campus may have a surveillance system in one area that provides adequate coverage managed on a local network server, while another section of the campus within the same region might have a different video management software than what the first campus offers. Those scenarios are not ideal. What I highly recommend is a unified security solution that links campuses on the same VMS across the district or college system. The benefits of this may not be obvious, though they're worth considering. In a linked multi-site system, the security manager only has to administer one VMS across the geographical region. Local users can be trained to use the software no matter where the campus is located, and training is streamlined and ease of use becomes the standard of operation. Additionally, now that the security platform is unified, the geographically diverse campuses can be linked by network. This can be accomplished by a fiber connection or other connections that make sense district-wide. Often, the network links between campuses may already exist. They just need to be leveraged for transmission of video surveillance and data. Another benefit of linking the multi-site campuses is central storage of data. Your storage servers can now be located and maintained at a central site. Also, video and data are safely stored at the central site. Video can be retrieved from the central storage and viewed remotely at any location on the network. A secure access from outside of the network may also be achieved using a web browser or mobile application if necessary. This is a great feature for sometimes users like first responders or police. They can gain quick access with proper authorization. Now, when responding to situations, they have real-time situational awareness in an otherwise blind event. This is a great benefit to the security managers, administrators, and end users. The IT staff is even able to monitor the health of their system without needing to be on site at the remote campus location. It's a great time saver and a smart way to deploy an advanced enterprise surveillance solution. One recommendation I would make would be choosing the right VMS for your enterprise surveillance deployment. You want to choose a VMS that uses a thin client on the edge of the network. Prospective VMS is a good example to point out here. What we're talking about is users at the campus location accessing the centrally stored data via their web browser. No software needs to be installed or maintained on the client workstations. Technicians don't need to make trips to the campuses to upgrade software. All software upgrades may occur at the central site to the VMS servers. That information is pushed out to the client workstations automatically. That's a huge step and truly defines an enterprise management software. Enterprise software for video surveillance is designed to support thousands of cameras, depending on how the network is structured. I understand we may have lost our audio connection here. How are we doing? Do we have a connection here, David? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Maybe back up and running? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we were talking about technicians not needing to make trips to campuses to upgrade software. Those get pushed out automatically. That really is a big time saver for a lot of folks. Enterprise software for video surveillance is designed to support thousands of cameras, depending on how the network is structured. Most campuses are moving away from analog cameras in favor of IP cameras with megapixel resolution. We have many webinars in our archive talking about the benefits of megapixel cameras. The bottom line is this: better resolution provides a better picture. Take a look at the bottom of the page here. An analog camera with D1 resolution provides 720 by 480 pixels, seen on the left side. That's the maximum number that an analog camera can provide under NTSC standards, although there are some workarounds using analog cameras today. Megapixel cameras are network devices that digitize the picture and then transmit it over a computer network. These cameras provide a much larger image because they fit more pixels into the picture. Most megapixel IP cameras today are probably 1080p. That's a good resolution compared to analog cameras that were top of the line just a few years ago. 1080p resolution provides 1920 by 1080 pixels. That equates to about 2 megapixels of resolution. Newer cameras are now providing 4K technology. This is a camera that provides 3840 by 2106 pixels. This is equal to 8 megapixels of resolution. That's so many pixels that some systems can't handle the information appropriately. You may need to get new display monitors to be able to see the difference in resolution. You probably also need a PoE switch, a gigabit PoE switch, and gigabit NIC cards in your servers to handle the increased bandwidth. Bandwidth and storage calculations can be complex. Network video products utilize network bandwidth and storage space based on their configuration. This depends on the following: number of cameras, whether the recording will be continuous or event-based, number of hours per day the camera will be recording, frames per second, image resolution, video compression type such as motion JPEG, MPEG-4, or H.264, image complexity such as a gray wall versus a forest scene. Image complexity also encompasses lighting conditions and amount of motion in the video. Data storage will vary depending on the security policy. Do you need to keep your video for 30 days or 6 months? A big difference. In a small surveillance system involving 8 to 10 cameras with standard resolution, a basic 100 megabit network switch can be used without having to consider bandwidth limitations. Most companies implement a surveillance system of this size using their existing network. When implementing a system of 10 or more cameras, especially if megapixel resolution is required, the network load can be estimated using a few rules of thumb. A camera that's configured to deliver high-quality images and high frame rates will use approximately 2 to 4 megabits of available network bandwidth. With more than 12 to 15 cameras, consider using a switch with a gigabit backbone. If a gigabit supporting switch is used, the server that runs the video management software should have a gigabit network adapter installed. I've run some general numbers here in this chart based on an analog camera, a 2 megapixel camera, and an 8 megapixel camera. I calculated numbers at 15 frames per second running on an H.264 compression. You can see the higher you go into megapixel resolution, the more bandwidth is required. In reality, that has to be configured in the scope of the whole array of cameras and balanced appropriately across the entire system based on priorities. Not only does the bandwidth use go up when using megapixel cameras, but your storage will go up as well. The worldwide amount of data being generated by surveillance cameras in a day is mind-boggling. This graphic shows the average data generated daily by new surveillance cameras shipped globally from 2014 to 2019. According to a new report from IHS, the amount of daily data generated by new video surveillance cameras installed worldwide in 2015 was 566 petabytes. Estimates show that by the end of 2019, new security cameras will be generating more than 2,500 petabytes of data on a daily basis. When you're considering resolution, it's important to know the pixels per foot you want to achieve for any given camera location. Determining whether you need standard resolution or high resolution usually requires considering several different criteria. Keep in mind that HD resolution is not always the right choice. You have to strike a balance between the resolution, image quality, bandwidth availability, and storage availability. Some high priority areas will absolutely require megapixel video. If you're covering a large area with one camera and you need facial recognition, then megapixel video is a must. However, low priority areas with little coverage area may only need a standard resolution camera. Pixels per foot is a metric that delivers a specific level of quality. For example, using this chart, you should be able to select the right resolution for the scene. The image following the pixels per foot criteria should deliver a predictable level of quality. Calculating pixels per foot can depend on two factors: the number of horizontal pixels in the video and the width of the field of view the camera captures at the point of interest. Be careful to properly identify the horizontal pixel count. Don't confuse that with the vertical pixel count. For instance, a 720p camera has a total resolution of approximately 1 megapixel, but its horizontal pixel count is 1280 and its vertical pixel count is 720. More commonly, it's described as 1280 by 720. It's the first number in the pair, the 1280, that counts for measuring pixels per foot. The second part of the calculation is how wide a field of view one wants to cover at a given distance. Determining pixels per foot in relation to the level of detail desired can be determined using this chart. The quality of detail desired is indicated in the feet of horizontal coverage. The quality levels are broken down into three levels: general detail, forensic detail, and high detail. General detail is being able to recognize general movement and activity. There's no fine detail that can be determined here. You may not be able to make out facial features and vehicle details unless they're fairly close to the camera. Forensic detail provides a much better quality image. You can start to make out facial features, make and model of car, etc. High detail provides the best detail and clarity available in the scene. You can make out specific features in a face. You might be able to clearly identify the driver of a car. You may even be able to make out the denomination of money changing hands or a license plate number under the right circumstances. And the link for this chart is right here at the bottom of the page. That brings us up to poll question number 3, David.
Okay, I'll launch it for us here. The question is, what features make up an enterprise-level security software? And you can select between integration between multiple security systems, video tags, and task assignment, manages more than 50 cameras or devices, or server redundancy, or all of the above. And that was quick. Everybody's made their selection, so let's see what was chosen. All of the above, 100%.
Well, that's the right choice. That's my answer as well, all of the above. Enterprise enterprise systems allow for a lot of flexibility in the configuration of the security footprint. They bring an advanced and complex level of system design that most small systems just can't handle. Let's take a look here at some of the key considerations in an enterprise security system. All of the VMSs selected by most integrators share most of the following differentiators. These enterprise features are generally not found in smaller scale systems. The enterprise system will manage a large number of cameras. Some software will even allow unlimited number of cameras that you can include on the system. Your only restrictions there will be the network that you put into place to provide proper bandwidth and storage you require for the large number of cameras, and potentially the number of servers that you're running your software on. Software only options are available as well. Many low-end VMSs are only available on appliances. However, large-scale users want the flexibility to be able to run their recording application on their own choice of servers. So a software-only choice is provided at the enterprise level. Most low-end VMS software will have limited access control, point of sale, intrusion detection, or video analytics integrations, for example. So most enterprise systems will have third-party systems integration included. Large-scale users have one or many of these other systems up and running, and they would like to they have a desire to integrate between them. Software developers can accommodate that by integrating those needed systems into the VMS. For broad third-party IP camera support, many low-end VMSs might only support their own cameras or attempt a best effort via ONVIF. ONVIF is a widely accepted standard, though it isn't a full-featured standard supporting all capabilities of IP cameras. However, large-scale users often need the flexibility to integrate various cameras, either due to special needs or changes in purchasing decisions over time. Many entry-level VMSs require logging into each unit individually in order to configure cameras, as well as independent logins and passwords for each software instance. That can be very time-consuming and difficult to coordinate. Most large-scale VMSs allow centralized administration and accounts. Most notably, a single sign-on and a user management using Active Directory or LDAP is often a requirement of large system administrators. Low-end software solutions do not allow users to share or push video to other users. That's not a common use case for most small systems. However, many large-scale users will have a need to take a look at multiple simultaneous monitors and/or users who can benefit from being able to dynamically share video feeds in real time. Most low-end VMS software just displays video. However, larger systems often need specific responses to be taken if events happen. Large-scale VMSs will allow administrators to define rules and actions that may be generated. That's often called workflow management. Most VMSs, if offline for any reason, lose video for that period. However, large-scale systems, users won't allow or accept that. They need an always-up option. Large-scale VMSs are configured to utilize a secondary or redundant server to quickly take over for the primary server that temporarily goes offline. Redundancies can also be configured to backup storage as well. Let's take a look here at a few systems configurations. This will help you determine how you might design your IT infrastructure on campus. The small system usually consists of one server running a surveillance application that records the video to a local hard disk. The video is reviewed and managed by the same server. Although most viewing and management will be done at the server, a client, local or remote, can be connected for the same purpose. Bandwidth and use of that system would be light. A typical medium-sized installation of 25 to 100 cameras has a server with additional storage attached to it. The storage is sometimes configured with RAID in order to increase performance and reliability. Keep in mind when you set up a RAID configuration, you can expect a noticeable reduction in storage capacity when compared to a non-RAID configuration. Therefore, you may need additional storage drives to deploy a RAID configuration to achieve the same overall amount of storage. In this system configuration, video is normally viewed and managed from a client rather than from the recording server itself. Bandwidth and use of this system would be medium to heavy. In a large-sized installation requiring high performance and reliability in order to manage a large amount of data and bandwidth that will be needed, you might need a large centralized system. That could be anywhere from 50 to 1,000 plus cameras. Video data is transmitted to the central location and could be stored in a variety of storage devices. This type of setup is truly in need of enterprise management software, and this requires multiple servers with dedicated tasks. The master server will control the system and decide what kind of video is stored to what storage server. As there is a dedicated storage server assigned, it's possible to do load balancing within the software. In such a setup, it's also possible to scale up the system by adding more storage servers when needed, do maintenance without bringing down the entire system, for example. Additional servers may handle other functions like a SQL database or report management, video streaming services, and more. And a large distributed system could handle 1,000 plus cameras or more. A large distributed system is built also as an enterprise system. When multiple sites require surveillance with centralized management, distributed recording can be used. Each site could have a storage array that records and stores the video from the local cameras. The master view controller can view and manage recordings from each site. There are times when this layout makes better sense from a network standpoint than a centralized management system. And that brings us to our questions and answers.
Yes. Bear with me and I'll gather up some of these questions. Looks like we've got a few minutes here that we can go ahead and answer some of these. Those that we don't get to, we will follow up with in a few days via email. But Keith, it looks like our first question here is, what is the difference between visible IR and invisible IR illumination?
Okay, that's a good question. Infrared light is a way that you can supplement a camera scene with artificial light. When white light isn't available, you can flood an area with infrared light that the camera can see, but it's less visible to the human eye. Security cameras that have infrared LEDs are typically emitting light that's slightly visible, between 840 nanometers and 880 nanometers of frequency. That light is not visible to flood the scene with light, but is, from the human eye, what is noticeable is a red glow that's visible at the camera position when the illuminator is active. If you have certain areas that you don't want that illumination to be visible from the camera position, then you need to consider an illuminator with 940 nanometers. That makes the light invisible to the human eye. Usually security cameras don't have those LEDs with 940 nanometers built in. You would need to provide a separate illuminator that would be designed to be invisible to the human eye.
Okay. How does bit rate affect network bandwidth and video quality?
This is kind of a complex topic. Bit rate is a topic that you can really dive deep into, so I'm just going to kind of hit the high spots here. Video compression technologies can remove redundant video data so that the digital file can be sent over a network and stored more efficiently. The bit rate is the number of bits per second that can be transmitted along the digital network. The same bit rate video in a newer codec like H.264 can look substantially better than it would through an older video codec like Motion JPEG or MPEG-4. Some network deployments have a lot of concerns about bandwidth. So there's two different kinds of bit rates out there, and they don't handle the data the same. A variable bit rate increases bandwidth, and when there's a lot of activity in the scene, and it will decrease the bandwidth use when there's no motion activity. So when you have limited bandwidth available, the recommended mode is normally constant bit rate, and constant bit rate will keep you at same level across the board. The disadvantage with that is when there is any increased activity in the scene, sometimes that activity will go higher than the target rate that you've set. And so when you restrict the bit rate or cap that out, it can result in a lower image quality when you have motion activity. So you have to pick and choose between the two, depending on what your bandwidth use might be.
Okay, thank you. Next question, we've got time for maybe one or two more. What types of storage can be used for surveillance storage besides a RAID solution?
Now, we talked about RAID a little bit earlier. When you're using RAID, you want to make sure that you're providing enough storage capacity to handle the RAID solution because of the way it distributes the data onto the drives. But aside from RAID, there's several different types that are available depending on your project. There's direct attached storage that attaches directly to the server, either internally or externally. It's mostly used in smaller setups and applications. Direct attached storage is most often used when a single network video recorder is used for recording with internal drives. I recommend making sure that in any of these scenarios that the NVR or your storage array is using a surveillance-grade hard drive. Seagate and Western Digital offer hard drives that are designed for continuous write cycle. You want to make sure you're not using a standard desktop hard drive, as they don't stand up well in surveillance use. Your capacity, when you're using a direct attached storage, you're not using a high capacity storage capability. Network attached storage gives you more storage capacity. It consists of an appliance that's loaded with hard drives, and it usually resides on a network and not attached directly to the recorder. There's also a storage area network. That's either a dedicated or shared network, which is designed for the use and transmission of storage data. What differs between the NAS and the SAN is that a NAS device contains an operating system and may perform other functions, and a SAN is simply used for raw storage. SANs are most often used when multiple recording servers are in use, and since they're typically extremely scalable, sometimes they can get up into the petabyte range. Other options, edge storage contained in the camera itself, that's primarily used for backup of video. And then there's cloud storage. I'm not a fan of cloud storage for enterprise solutions. Video data transfer can hamper your ability to move video back and forth due to the high amount of bandwidth that would be needed.
Okay, I think we can squeeze one more in, Keith, and then we'll wrap it up for today's webinar. What about wide dynamic range cameras? What is that about?
Yeah, I mentioned that primarily for lobby or entrance areas. Wide dynamic range is a feature that helps you handle a wide range of lighting conditions in a scene. As an example, a person standing in front of a bright window or in a doorway. In that scene, extremely bright and dark areas, you might have a backlit situation. A typical camera produces an image where objects in the dark will hardly be visible. The wide dynamic range solves this by applying different exposures of different objects in the scene, and this enables objects in both the bright and the dark area to be visible. A true wide dynamic range is a sensor-based technology, and it provides the best quality image. A lot of cameras also instead use a digital wide dynamic range, which adjusts the gamma value in the camera software and enhances the dark areas. Provides a good image, but it's not quite the same as a true wide dynamic range.
Okay, thank you, Keith, and that will conclude our webinar today. Keith will post our contact information on the screen there. But don't forget, we'd like you to complete a quick survey at the end of this webinar. And on the survey, again, you can request a completion certificate. And then we'll email out some of the items promised in this webinar. And we'll also send out answers to the questions that came in today. This will also be posted on the video archive on the LENSEC website, which is www.lensec.com. And you'll also find previously recorded webinars there covering a variety of topics. And again, please notate the contact information on your screen, and please feel free to reach out to either Keith or I with questions about this webinar, about projects you may be working on, anything you think where we can help out with current or future projects. So thanks again. That wraps up our webinar. Thank you for attending, and hopefully we'll see you again next month with another installment of the Step into Security webinar series. Thank you.